Hi there, it's Kathy with Be Creative with Kathy. Today's video, I'm going to just jump right in there and make my card. I worried trying to get my camera. Look how close it is to my hands. I had trouble. This is what we have to deal with, so you just have to pardon me. But we're going to make another swap today. So here's my card pieces and parts. Here's what we're going to make. I think it turned out really cute. I've done a lot of the prep work beforehand because, like I said, I'm making swaps for OnStage, which is in, I think, well, a few weeks. We're getting really close now. So it's a simple card. I think it turned out really cute. Let's see what you think. So let me show you, first of all, what the prep work I've done and what I've used, just in case you want to make the card, so that way you know. So our card base is basic gray, just your basic 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4, and folded in half. Then I have two pieces here of basic white, and these are 5 1/4 by, I believe, 2 3/8. Yeah, this one's a little bit bigger than 2 3/8, but it doesn't really matter. One's going to be the inside, and one is going to be a layer behind our frame here. So as long as this white paper is smaller than your frame, then you're good to go. Like I said, it's about 5 1/4 by 2 3/8. The exact measurements are on my gallery, becreativewithkathy.com, and you can search OnStage swaps and find it that way. Okay, so my designer series paper is that Country Woods designer series paper, and I just took it and ran it through with the this die, which is the Gallery Blooms dies. They have this great big die, and when you cut it out, and I forgot to get the other part, let me grab that really quick, because when you cut it out, it has 3 pieces to it that look like this. And now I might not have the same shade of paper, because you saw in the paper it has different colors, but when you run this through the die cut, it has this piece, and it cuts out this piece, and it cuts out this piece. Now, this piece I set aside for something, I don't know. This is going to be used on my swap card for next Monday. So I decided to try to use as many of these pieces as I can. We're going to save these 2 pieces, well, one for a project, one for the card, my final swap, I think, maybe, we'll see, for Monday. But anyway, so that's how I cut that out. And then the same designer series paper, just from a scrap, I used the dies from the bundle that we're gonna, let me put this away before I lose it. The bundle that we're gonna use today for stamping, and that is the Fragrant Layers. The stamp set looks like this, and then the dies look like this. And the only die we used was to cut out this little banner. So this one right here, my dies are kind of a mess, but you can see it layers, it's flowering. There's so much you can do with this, so much more than I'm doing. But we are going to use those stamps to stamp our flowers in our frame today. So I got all my pieces and parts all ready to go. So let's bring in those 2 white pieces. That's what we're going to stamp on today. And I'll bring in this, where did my, I stamp this little piece of cardstock. This will be for reference, so I can show you what card. Now I know it's a little blurry, I apologize, but I can show you what stamps I'm going to use. We're going to start with this great big outline stamp, and since I'm using basic gray card base, I'm going to use basic gray cardstock. And man, we are totally zoomed in, but we just have to deal with it. I apologize. Okay, basic gray ink. Now, I'll warn you too, I've realized, and this is from just experience of making these swaps, basic gray ink stains your stamp a lot more than, say, for instance, Memento Black. So if you don't like stained stamps, don't use basic gray, because I've scrubbed it and it does not come off like the Memento Black does, or like some other colors. I know pink stains your stamps, but I was a little bit shocked how much basic gray stains your stamps. Okay, so basic gray in that outline image. I'm going to stamp it as best I can into the center. Like I said, we're going to cover it up with a frame, so it's not perfect. It doesn't matter, but it's easier if you start by stamping that in the center. And I'm letting that ink really sink into the paper so I get a nice crisp image like that. So one down, here we go. Okay, so now we need to put some color on that. So I'm going to bring in this stamp. This stamp is the the two-step stamping or the second step. And I want it in 2 different colors. So I want the little round, where's my berry things, in Pool Party. And I want my actual flower petals in Flirty Flamingo. And I'm gonna start with the Pool Party first. And I'm gonna use daubers, here they are. Here's this my Pool Party dauber. Yeah, I like to take my daubers, put the color on it, then I just use that dauber for that color all the time. And after a while, they get really saturated and they work really better. Now, since I'm gonna daub the ink onto my stamp, I think it's easier to have a white background. Now, I know the glass mat that I'm using is got a bluish tint to it, so I'm gonna set it, and this is just the pad of paper, which I've been using as my pierce mat or my stamp pad. This is just the pad of paper from the new stamp positioner. So, and it worked really well. And we're going to use it more ways than just as a pad. But this way it's white, so you can see the ink through your stamp. I don't know if that makes sense. I guess you'll just have to trust me. And I'm going to pick up the ink out of my Pool Party and just daub it on. But now that it's on that white, and maybe you can't see it, but boy, I can. And if anything, this video is going to be a head in the camera video, especially when I have it this zoomed in. But I tried to unzoom it, and my phone, which is my camera, did not cooperate, so I gave up and figured we're gonna have a close-up today. Okay, I'm just gonna get as much ink of that Pool Party, because it's a light color, onto these little, I call them berries, but I don't think that's what they are. They're just part of a flower. I don't know the name of the flower, so in my eyes they turn into berries. But you can see maybe now through there that I have Pool Party ink on the little circles on my stamp. Okay, there we go. And then for that petals, like I said, we're going to use some Flirty Flamingo. And I'm going to do the same thing. And this is how I got my flowers to be two-toned instead of one big color, the same color. And now maybe you can see, and I'm going to try to get up to those edges, maybe use the side of my dauber to try to get the full petal, get that Pool Party off the petal if I happen to get some on there, and turn them pink. Now, it's not going to be perfect because I'm using the dauber, but I'm going to get it as close as I can. And then, of course, after I have it all daubed on there, because my stamp now is stained, because of that Flirty Flamingo, kind of turn it, I can see it looks pretty good. I'm going to put just a little bit more on there just to be safe than sorry. Okay, and then I'm going to revive the ink with a little breath, or Darth Vader, or whatever you call it. And then bring my flower back in here. And then this is the part where I might get my head in the camera, because I'm going to hover pretty good and check and make sure that Pool Party is above those berries. Is that what we're calling them? Did we decide on that one? And that my petals are lined up. And then I'm going to just set it down. Let's see how I did. Now I'm really letting that ink sink into my paper. I'm applying pressure. I'm not applying too much pressure, but enough that I know that I get some good color. And there, look how pretty my flower is. Yay! It worked. Okay, now to do my leaves, I'm going to just use some Pool Party. That coordinates nice with the, or no, not Pool Party, I'm sorry. This is Pretty Peacock. That coordinates with my Pool Party ink on my little berries. And there's 3 sets of leaves in the stamp set here. There's this one, and this one down here. And they all coordinate with these 3 here. So I'm going to start with the easiest one, which is those, they have 3 petals on there, or 3 leaves on there. And I'm going to probably get my head in the camera, but here again, I'm going to look through that stamp and get it lined up best I can. And then look how pretty that one turned out. And then the other ones are almost identical, so it takes me a minute to figure, no, this one is that one. Okay, so this one is down here. Get a little bit more ink just in case. Get my head in the camera, hello. There we go. And then the last one will coordinate with this little set of leaves over here, which I'm going to bring closer so I can see. And stamp that down. There, now we have a good start. Now all we have left is to do the inside of our flowers. So it has this little dot right here. That's what I'm going to use. I want a light color, but kind of bright, so I'm going with Lemon Lolly. and I'm going to stamp this on this inside. Now, when you have dark ink and light ink, you have to be careful because your stamp will pick up some of the color off the gray. So I'm going to kind of wipe it off. And this is how I know. I started seeing, whoops, here so you can see, on my ink pad, there was gray on there. And it's because the gray from the flower kept getting on my stamp. And then I would take it to my ink pad. And I'm trying not to do that. So after I stamp the little flower, I make sure I just wipe it off here. And I don't know if you can see or not, but that gray ink definitely gets picked up, and I don't want any more gray ink on my Lemon Lolly ink pad. So like I said, I'm just making sure I wipe it off there. Okay, so now before we put our stamps and ink away, because we have two more things we need to stamp. We're done with this for stamping wise. I'm going to set that aside and bring in this little banner here and the inside of my card. We'll go ahead and bring in that Flirty Flamingo again. And I'm going to just stamp with, let's see, this single flower right here, just to give the inside some color too. So I'm going to just stamp it right there at the corner. Look how pretty that little flower is. Okay. And then with the pretty peacock, I'm going to take the line leaf like this one and just stamp it next to my little flower here. Nothing perfect, just a little bit of color right there. And then of course while we have the pretty peacock out though, I want to stamp my wording on my banner, and that's the little hello again from the stamp set right there. So find my little hello. I guess it doesn't matter, I still want upside down, but I'm going to get this as straight as I can. Head in the camera again. And I just stamped that, and I hope I got it in the center. I should have stamped that on dark, because that white on white was kind of hard to see, but I think it turned out okay. Okay, now we're done. No, we need the inside of our flower, and then we're done stamping. So bring in that Lemon Lolly again. And that little circle. And look, I didn't clean it off, and now I got more ink. This is what it does to your ink pad. Bummer. Okay, I will try to clean that off. All I did was take and wipe the ink off and then re-ink it, and it fixed it somewhat. So it still works really well, but I really don't like the fact that there is gray ink on my Lemon Lolly ink pad. So just be aware of that when you're stamping dark or light colors over dark colors, that it picks up the ink. Okay, we're done stamping, so I'm going to put all of that away. Now what we need to do is we need to texture this piece of paper. Here's another thing, because this ink probably looks dry, it doesn't smear or anything, but when you run it through an embossing folder, it tends to leave the ink on the embossing folder. So I would suggest you stamp all of this, let it sit and dry, or maybe hit it with a heat gun, and then that way when you run it through the embossing folder, which is what we're going to run it through, this beautiful patterns embossing folder, the ink from this will not get on your folder. So I've stamped one, of course, in advance. So I have it here. Looks about the same. I didn't do as good a stamping on this one as I did on that one. But this one I know for sure is dry because I stamped it yesterday. And we're going to run this through our embossing folder to give it some texture. Okay, bring in our machine. Well, let's bring in our plates first. I think that's easier. So I have the platform number 1. And then I have the plate number 4, and that's what you use with 3D embossing folders when you're going to emboss. Now we'll bring in our machine quickly and run this through, and then just that simple, we have all of our pieces and parts, and now it's time to assemble our card. And man, as I watch my video, it's so zoomed in. I feel like you are like right on top of me, but maybe that's better. Okay, no ink on my embossing folder because you would be able to see it through there. So I know that that was nice and dry. And that's just another thing when you're making cards just to be aware of, because you'd hate to have, and what happens is you run your next piece through and the ink that was on your embossing folder now shows up on that piece and they don't line up, and then you have a mess. Okay. Let's go back. So we have all of our pieces and parts. It's time to assemble our card. And I'm going to use my silicone mat because when we put dimensionals on here, I don't want it to stick to my glass mat. And it's easier with the silicone mat. Now I'm going to use adhesive foam sheets. I brought them in this time. Last time I couldn't remember what they were called. Adhesive foam sheets. And I'm going to take it like this. And now I'm going to cut them into like 1/4 inch strips. And I would try it on my paper trimmer, but I think you have to have a guillotine cutter to do this. So that's what I'm going to just cut them about 1/4 of an inch. And for video's sake, I'm only going to quickly cut 4 of them. When I was making all my videos, I would just take the whole sheet and just cut it all into 1/4 inches. And now, is this mandatory? Do you have to use the foam sheets? No, you don't, but it's so much easier than trying to peel the backs off of hundreds of little dimensionals to try to keep your frame sturdy. So you take your little thing there. I only have to take 1 back off. It was just so much faster that this is how I suggest you, when you have a big frame like this, I think the silicone sheets, nope. What were they called? Foam adhesive sheets. I'll never get that right. Okay, this one I'm going to cut into thirds, and because one to go there, one to go down here, and then I'll save this one for my greeting when it comes time. So let's set this here. This one here. And then take those backs off, which is so much faster, like I said. And when you're trying to do a bunch of swaps, I think you need convenience, so you don't go crazy. Well, maybe that's just me trying to make that many cards. Which in this case, I think it's a 22 card swap, so it's not even that many, but still quite a few. Okay, I have my thing. Now I'm not gonna worry about getting this so it's perfect. My white piece is where it should be. I'm gonna just worry about what looks good in the frame. Now if it starts showing below or above the frame or at the sides, I can certainly just take that white, and I'll show you because I did do it on this one. Very good example. Down here, my white hangs off a little bit, so I'm going to take my paper snips. Doesn't matter how pretty it is, I just don't want to see it on the front, and just trim that off. And now you have a pretty frame. Isn't that pretty? I think that's really pretty. And the back is not pretty at all. And some of the foam sheet is showing here, but that's okay because I'll just use that as extra adhesive when I put it onto my card. So now with liquid glue, because I'm going to slide it into place, I'm going to put some liquid glue here on the back. And then, like I said, I'm going to slide it into place. With this frame thing here, there is a very, very small border at the top and the bottom. So if I slide it down here to where I think it goes and then set this piece down, or the top, I guess I should say, down, now I can slide it around where I need it. I think it looks pretty good right there. And then I'll press it and hold it into place for just a minute. And look how sturdy my frame is because of those foam adhesive, whatever sheety things, I never can remember what they're called. And looky there. Let's go ahead and put the inside in. And I did the inside in that same size as the front, and that way it kind of keeps the flow of the card maybe, so that it looks, I don't know, I thought that looked better than having the full, something different too. Yeah, I got that pretty straight. But now, look how the card opens and looks the inside. Whoops, too close. Way zoomed in. Okay, let's put our greeting on there. So we have this here. I'm going to use maybe that same foam strip, and I'm going to put it in the inside so I can kind of slide it onto the edge like that. And then just slide it right here. So now you'll have to tell me, okay, can you see? Oh, my banner, my hello is crooked. Let me fix that first. There, that looks better. Do you like the banner the same as Designer Series Papers, the frame? At first I couldn't quite decide, and then I thought, no, I do like it, and then another time I said, no, I don't like it. So you'll have to let me know what you think of that. Okay, now we need some embellishments on there, and I decided, and I'm not sure why, but I think maybe because the card has so much color, I decided to just go with basic rhinestones. just a clear. Now, back in my day, when I first started being a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, rhinestones and pearls were almost our only choice. And lately it seems like we have, or maybe I should use I terms. I have like veered away from that and went to all the colored. But when I saw the basic rhinestones, there he is, I thought that was the way to go. So I'm going to just use basic rhinestone as my gems here. And look how pretty now that looks. And then the last thing I'm going to put on my card is one of these little ladybugs. I know you guys hear me talk about the brass butterflies all the time. They're my favorites. They're my favorites. Maybe a new little ladybug, since the brass butterflies are slowly but surely going to be unavailable. Maybe the little ladybugs are going to take over. So there you go. There's my card. I know I rambled on, but I think I showed you a couple tricks. Be careful when you're stamping light ink over dark ink so you don't get any ink on your ink pad like I did. That was awful, and I'll have to clean that up again. Let me know what you think of the banner. Do you like the banner the same color as the frame around the edge? Whoops, that's an extra one. I still have a few to make. Alrighty, there's what I have for you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you back here next time. See you then, next Monday at 1:30. I have all the measurements and the stuff I'm working on now to get onto my gallery. So if you want the measurements of the cardstock, be sure and visit becreativewithkathy.com. And if you see my videos and you want to see my past videos and you're here on Facebook Live, you can go to my YouTube channel, again, Be Creative with Kathy, and see all of my videos there. Alrighty, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of my video, and I'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye.